Alright, seems to be working on Twitch, should be working on YouTube. Okay, so the next step of this tutorial. So what we did before was I showed the general process with my very bad mic. the uh, the general process of coming up with the first pass of the terrain, which is basically we get the shape we want, where we want, and how we want it to look. So what we went over was recreating let's see actually, if I can load up in Nugget. I think it was this one. Which one was it actually? Projects, yeah, it's that one. So we have a terrain already imported from the last session, and just gonna give that a wee look now. So debug, load all tiles, zoom out. And it's very bright. There's no texture applied yet, so it's just generic auto default colors for everything. So put it to night, it's a bit more bearable. So as you can see here, we have the coastline and the kind of backwards D shape. So around the north and northwest, northwest coast, it's a lot lower than the rest of the terrain. It's pretty flat, which is how we want it to be. And we have the higher terrain to the east that's very mountainous. Well, very mountainous compared to what it was in vanilla. It's just not mountainous at all. It's just got some blobs. And we've got the two valleys coming through that lead to the beach. And we also have, the smaller mountains in the center. It's not even like a mountain pass, but just mountains that you can walk around, and just the general cliffs and steep coast, which you can see here, basically. And how it originally looked was like this. See if this will work. Oh, it actually worked on this old version. Cool. So if we go to this Eastern Kingdoms, West falls about here, I think. It's been a while. Okay, let's just load all the tiles. Just take a wee minute. Okay, we zoom out. West falls here. Right. As you can see, the weird flowing cliffs and mountain range to the south. This is a better look. Got the wee mountainous mountain things here-ish, hills. I genuinely don't know. Got one valley here, kind of some valley going on there, maybe. And just general hills and things to actually make it more interesting. So we have that, and we look into Gaea. General shape's kind of the same. The mountains there probably facing the wrong way, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over, well, something looking natural versus it being one-to-one with Westfall, the original zone. Because, I mean, we've got some really nice texture here. We've got the flows, we've got the mountains, got the more mountainy cliffside here, and we got in the right place. So, job well done, I think. And I'll just go over as a recap what the actual workflow was. So let me just bring all this up. So over here on the left, you can see I've got multifractal, a mask, a ridge, and a range. And basically, you do your terrain in stages. These are called primitives, which are the top left here in the toolbox, and geoprimitives here. You're probably going to use more geoprimitives than just multifractal, line, noise, gabor, because they're very simple. And that's kind of how it'd be in World Machine too. But with Gaea, which is just so much better, they've actually got more complex shapes, but still relatively basic versus, having everything eroded and thermal and everything. So you come up with your basic shapes from geoprimitives and primitives. They look like this. Now with multifractal, if you want to get nice variation, you have to really jack up the settings here. And what you do after that is you clamp it. just reduce the peaks just to an extent, like 13% of the original height, but you still get the nice variation to mess around with all these other settings. And then we added the mask to create the same sort of backward D shape, and we use it later as well just to re-emphasize it, because when we erode and terrace and erode again, you're going to see the overall guide here, because there's nothing there in slopes. It's going to just make everything bulked up. We don't exactly want, we want something, but we don't want it to be as high or even higher than the rest of the terrain. So we just subtract the mask a bit later here. So this is how it would look without. Subtract that layer, we get just the overall shape retained. Anyway, so after we've got that, we try to add some more texture at a fairly like a similarity to the original terrain. And I thought this was a good one because we wanted a definite ridge in the south and just some general push up, but this was the wrong way around. We want this north bit here at the south. So I just did a flipped node, see that here. Did a ridge, flipped it, so we had to clip it to the south. Did a shaper to kind of de-emphasize the height, then emphasize the stuff that's lower, and then a clamp to squish it back down. So we went from that to a flip, through a shape and a clamp to get that. We combine it back with the original terrain, just a simple embed, which allows you to just take some of the features without actually changing the overall height of all of the terrain in one go. So we had that. After combining with embed, we went to the general embedding the shapes. That's what's called embed from the original without changing the overall height, just adding detail from one shape to another. Then we did a range, which just added overall rockiness, because if we were to erode this where there's not much going on, it'd be like a bunch of grasslands, just like some hills, which we don't want. We want mountains and cliffs and beaches. So do a range, which had a nice texture, similar layout to the ridge. Well, after the flip, see here, got some high stuff at the south, got something going on in the center, and you just clamp that and flip it. Yeah, that worked really well, especially with the mountainy bit closer to the south. So we went from this combined with another embed, and as you can see, just do another switch. So before, back lower this, and then after, it's more destructive, I guess. Probably not the best way to put it, because we're not like crunching, but we're getting away from the basic shape that we started with, which was this, the basic primitive node. We added to it, and then we added to it again, because now, rather than just being bumps and slopes, we've added more rock-like structures and cliffs, which is good, because if you have a very soft terrain, something hilly, and use erosion on it, especially erosion with a high rock softness, it's gonna just look really weird. I'm not gonna bother showing that because I'm gonna show you just how to do things right. Because I'm sure if you're watching this, you've probably done it quite wrong before. So this is how well, at least how I do it to get the look I want. Then we did a fractal terrace, which was very intense, almost looks like a Minecraft map, just from how we took, even with the embedded cliffs, it was still very, very soft. And you see it's very slopey. It's not stark from one height to another as we go around the terrain. The fractal terraces, it gets as stark as it possibly could be, right? And then we did an aperture to expand, aperture to contract, which removes a lot of the noisy little bits of detail, but we still retain the overall shape. So before, after, look around the base of the outcrops here. you can just see it tidies everything up. We still retain the overall character, but we've removed some of the more noisy looking detail, which we need to do because if we erode with that, we're going to get what might look nice in Gaea, but even then, little spiky bits and ridges and bumps. And there's no real way to avoid those while still retaining the character, the overall shape, overall biome, overall look, what have you, of the terrain. Doing that after the fact. If we do it before the fact, no problem. Then we did a convector, which was to bulk out the slopes, and we had the options here. We disabled invert, disabled remove, and we just have add enabled. Steepness at a very low value. Why I can't quite remember, but high values doesn't really look for slopes for some reason, but if we have it at low values, it does. And we had 12 iterations just to create these overall, trying to think of a good way to put it, these overall outcrops from the very harsh, flat sort of terraces here. So we went from this to this. See, it also creates a more natural looking shape rather than these kind of icky mounds. So we had the convector, which bulked out the shape, did a stratify to add some texture, but it was way too intense. We've lost all the character of the terrain here. This looks like something that came from a volcano recently and just erupted everywhere. It's like a bunch of slag and obsidian. So what we did was we take the stratify and the node before it, and we combine it. So with stratify first, which is the source, the input, and then the previous node to input 2, the target, when we put the blend high, it basically becomes 100%, well, put the blend at 100%, it becomes the convector node completely. We put it back to where we were, I'm going to do undo, it might crash. So something like this, like 80, it's like 75 or something. We still get some of the effect from the stratify, which we see here, which was too much. And this is it before, and this is it after. Very slight, but that's because the stratify is very harsh, and we don't want it to become too much, because otherwise it's just like the stratify, right? So back to 75, 76. So we go from overall very continuous and just looks the same. It looks very synthetic. And with the stratify, we combine it a bit. It breaks it up, adds a bit more natural and less synthetic look to it, like if it was just 3D printed, right? Versus something that's actually a terrain that happened in the real world. Let's go from here to here. And then we take the mask we made before of the coast, because as you can see here, actually, let me go previously. So we had this very defined coastline here, but then when we did the fractal terrace, it bulked everything up. Then when we did the convector, that sloped it out. We combined it. We've lost that very sharp transition. We want to get that back because otherwise we're going to end up, as you can see here, the terrain that has the coast almost at the same level as, well, the actual terrain we will be walking on. We'll actually be building our level. So what we have to do is just get the mask again, which looks like this. It's the general D shape, remember, a backwards D. And we inverted it because that's easier to do. And we combine it back again. Just straight up, not even in a mask node, just genuinely as input to the target. And we did a subtract because, as you can see, this is pretty much 100%. And rather than clamp it, we just save a node and we just subtract it at a lower percent. And then we did an erosion. Now, there's a really cool trick you can do to get a very nice, how would I put this? Let me rephrase it. If you were to do an erosion with high duration, one, it takes forever, like exponentially longer than if you just had multiple erosion nodes at a set duration. And if you have the strength high, it's just too much. a really nice and neat way we can avoid the bad bits and the extra processing time, but create a nice shape, is if we do a loop, and these are shrank by default. So loop begin, loop end. And that creates a very natural, and also fairly weak, but still definite improvement over the input terrain, which was this. Because as you can see, very harsh, very rocky. It won't play well. There's not many actual slopes you can get up, just harsh transitions, and it's bumpy to be arse to play on as well. And then with the looped erosion, see, we've collapsed a lot of the hard bits. We've added paths, got rid of a lot of the hard surfaces, but we still have them. See here in the terraces, but there's a lot more dirt going on rather than just solid rock. We went from this to this. Shrink again with F11. Then we did a recurve to overall just give it a how to put this. Okay, so with the input terrain, you'll see that it's still very sharp, and if I can get in here, you can see these really jaggy bits. How everything looks very pixelated on the edges here. And recurve is good for, in a way, softening the peaks and pointy bits without being an outright blur, which encompasses all. And it's nicer even if you had a protrusion mask. A bit tired, so bear with me here. With a protrusion mask into the blur. So if you just do a recurve, it's very nice. And we still need to do some more, because we won't really be able to climb up that, I don't think. And it's still looking very monotonous, because you will have to put on different nodes, multiple erosions, different types of erosions to simulate weather patterns that happened over thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. You know, like the Earth, which is a few billion years old. So on the recurve, we did a very heavy wizard, because remember, the source terrain wasn't rocky. It was very, how do I put this, mostly flat with some hills and some cliffs and a coastline. So we're going to get closer to that, but you start off with the basic shape, you make it hard and rocky, and then you make the dirt and the sand and the gravel using the different erosion methods. We did the wizard, which is just genuinely easy, and when you want a typical, just lots of slopes, lots of deposits, I find wizards good for that. Whereas if I want something a bit more sophisticated, I use the actual erosion node itself. We did thermal to tidy up where the deposits are, and as you can see here, even with the wizard erosion, it's very harsh, and there's not much dirt. It's more like rock that's being chiseled into. And with thermal, it's basically sand, right? And that makes the transition a lot nicer, but we still keep the overall rocky parts. Just we want dirt, gravel, and sand around them, but not in their place. That makes sense. We want rocky and we want slopes. We don't just want rocky or slopes. We did fluvial node, and I can't quite remember. I think this put grooves in the terrain. See if I remember right. Yeah, it just put some small grooves to add back a bit of broader detail, but not too much, because we still want to retain the overall character, because this is looking pretty close. Then anastomosis, which seemed to bring out the hard shapes without bringing out the noise. Like see around here, right? These flatter areas which didn't have much going on, they're not really brought out. It seems like there's a threshold, whereas the more defined parts with fluvial, the anastomosis, they stand out more, they push through. So what we did was we took the softened terrain, we eroded it, and we did a thermal erosion, and with the fluvial to add the grooves, We did anastomosis to make the rock jut out a bit more, but in a different way than before thermal. See here, right? Because now we still have the slopes. We've just gotten some of the character back. I use character to mean the broader details, the overall shape, the biome. And when I say detail, I mean like these little pity bits, which we're going to remove because we don't want those. So we also did a fold to change the terrain a bit. We had folding down at a very low percentage because that looks really cool. And the reason you chain very similar effects one after the other, it's like we've got fractal terrace and a softener, we've got stratify and erosion with a softener with more erosion, and then we've got fold with more erosion. By piling up these different types of nodes and erosions and bulking nodes, by making things rock, then dirt, then some of it rock, some of it more dirt, maybe some of it gravel, as we change and warp the overall shape, we approach a more natural and genuinely more pleasant to look at environment. So let's keep going over here. As I get to the C node, I will then do the play-by-play of what changed. So after we did that, we then did a fractal terrace again to add some shape, some bulk to these very steep slopes. See here. What fractal terrace does is it cuts into into the terrain with layers, and that's just jutting rock basically, and it helps bulk things up because you want to bulk things up, make them hard, erode them, make them soft so they form out a bit. If you want to build them back up a bit, then erode them some more. Build them back up a bit, erode them some more. By doing that, you get a very again, natural look that isn't just quickly procedurally generated. Looks like it just came out of a math formula, like you would in No Man's Sky or 7 Days to Die. Oh yeah, then we did Convector again. And the reason why is very similar, but with the fold, it created some pretty nice shapes from the mountains and the cliffs, but still has the usual problem of they're a bit too steep. There's not a good transition. And this could work if you put a bunch of snow on. You could say it's like a mountain pass. But that's not what we want to do. We want to do farmland that's on the coast, which doesn't quite work because seawater, but there we are. And then we use fractal terrace to add a bit of bulk to it. Where we do the convector, we did that there with the convector. It's going to get into a lot of these, how do I put this? We'd lose some of the detail we would otherwise have by using fractal terraces. Yep. It's not a lot, but a small bit goes a long way when you're doing bulk. And when you don't have that small bit, everything looks like a flood of slurry, which wasn't a World Machine 2 erosion preset that I remember. And we want to avoid that look. So after we bulked up, what do you do then? Then do an erosion. To bulk up to then erode. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just, again, breaking down the rock to get sand and gravel and flows and dirt and grass, I guess. So this is how it looks. And then we did a C to add the coastline. Ignore the blue, that's just for preview. So we got a very nice result, which is almost there for being playable. But there's a few things we have to do. Right, yeah, we had these other ones, yeah. I forgot about this. So after doing the C node, you can see we lost a lot of the coast, but also we also lost the detail and the overall character. Now we want to, of course, lose some detail because we're going to be playing on it. It's 16-bit in-game, but we're seeing it's 32-bit in the editor. But that's going to look pretty awful and just look meh. So we then do an erosion, which is great for that, because erosion creates slopes. And if we see what's wrong with the C node, there's no slopes and it's blurry. Great. We use erosion to add the slopes and add a bit of detail. And since it's flatter by the beach, the coast, that's fine. It's a beach, and also you don't want a bunch of bumpy bits where you'll be swimming or transitioning from land to water, because that will just be odd to keep bobbing in and out of water as you're going up to the coast or away from the coast. Now we also have, because of all the erosions, these little jaggy pitty bits again, these little tiny bumps, which are annoying. So we do the aperture expand, the aperture contract. So as you see, it's harder to tell, but for example, this area here, we have a very sharp, very for the small detail. This is manifest as a little pit or a jag if you import it into our game engine. We remove it. We still have some of it, the overall character, but the very tiny itty bitty detail we just smoothed over. See? Before, after. Before, after. Go over here as another example. Before the aperture, after the aperture. It's cleared up the slopes. See here? That would be pretty impassable. It'd be awful to walk up that on your character. That'd be a bit smoother. And then where I left off, we did a blur to just generally smooth things out, which you want to do again. And that gave us this result in Nogget. Let's have a look. I could probably use the newer Nogget now. The reason I've got different Nogget versions is there's one that has tile import working properly, where it doesn't have the gaps in the terrain. If you use the fix gaps option, you create a big garbled data, all the ADT edges, the green and the red. And you want to avoid that. It's not because of an issue with the terrain, it's an issue with how Nogget handles each terrain slice, or ADT, what have you. And the fixed gaps is very much I would even say workaround, because it garbles the edges. So avoid it if you can. Use this particular version here. If you ask in the Discord, I'll be able to point it out if you're in the Nogget Red Discord, to import the terrain, but then switch to a new version. Actually, this is the new version. Yeah. Then you switch to the new version to actually view and make other changes. So let's do, I'm trying to do again, global. What am I trying to do again? Oh, where is it? Debug. Oh, yes, under debug, right. So we went from here in Gaea, because we smoothed everything out. We made sure to remove the jaggy bits, to smooth the pointy bits, but also bring out the overall shape of the mountains and the outcrops and the rocks. Even without any textures, we can overall see the overall terrain. Right? You can tell where there's rock, where there's the coast, where there's dirt and sand and gravel, and you can see where there's rock jutting out. I'm screwing up speaking because I'm pretty tired today, but I wanted to do this, so bear with me. But there's a few things we have to do. One, it's still really bumpy, and a bit of bump's fine, but this would be annoying to work on a level designer because you're going to have to flat everything out some more. And also just generally bobbing about is not nice to look at when you're playing a game. And we also need to make the transition from lower parts to higher bits a bit more gradual, because you're not going to be climbing up there. Let's see if I can display that, display our angle color. You probably can, but it's going to be arse to do. As you can see, the redder bits are harder to walk on or outright impossible to. Green where you can. It's probably hard to see in the stream, but it's a lot of red overlaid with green, which means it's going to feel awful to move the character around that. It's going to trip, it's going to snag, it's going to get stuck. Screw that, you don't want that. So, how do we avoid that? How do we get nicer slopes and transitions that we can walk on while still retaining the character of the terrain? Well, it's quite easy. Before we do the blur, and possibly before the aperture, we'll have to compare before and after. We're going to do a snowfall node. You might be thinking, we don't want actual snow. You're right. What we do want, though, is that blanketing effect, but not over everything. So to get a good preview, we're going to put a clamp here. And yeah, you can just adjust settings with this really hard to look at preview. Nah, we'll just pin the clamp node and we're going to adjust from there. So I like to do a small duration or low duration, bit higher intensity. And in fact, it's probably good to show what's actually happening. So I'll reset this because I already know what I'm trying to do, more or less, kind of. So I would just pin the clamp and adjust the fall, but let me actually show you what's happening. So over here is basically covering the whole terrain. That is way too much. We don't want an actual snowy map. We just want to create slopes and bulk up the existing ones separate from the rock bulking, so we can actually go up the slopes and around the cliffs and mountains. So let's make it a bit less intense. Go to about 9. I find a lower duration, slightly higher intensity, and a mix of settle and thaw is good for this. So probably about 30%. Okay. And we'll adjust the melt. Melt's very strong. You only want to use a little at first. If you need to increase it, go ahead. But you're basically just eyeing this up. And do it everything in increments in general with Gaea, but especially here. Increase settle thaw. And we probably want to advance the slip off angle. Do we need to modify the scale? That should be fine. The scale thing is just if you find you can't quite get the right shape, like if you can't get enough snow where you want it to, or there's too much snow, by adjusting the scale, if you take off real scale, you get to choose how much is applied vertically and how much horizontally by height and by breadth. So let's see. Keep real scale on for now, just to keep it simple. Because it might be we don't even need to touch the scale. Slip off angle. I'm trying to remember what that is. I guess it's, by the looks of it, it's any snow that's clinging to rock below this angle will fall. If it's at this angle, or no, wait, was it? I have no idea actually, but just it's doing something with the snow around the rock. Higher makes it cling to the rock more. Okay. And let's see, what does the tiered snow mass do? Higher means more on the rock, I guess. Right. Let's see if we add a bit more settle thaw and a bit more melt. See, melt's very strong. Just from going to 7 to 12, we've lost pretty much all the snow. Let's get some of it back. 11 to 10 is quite a difference. 10 to 9, we get a good chunk of snow back. 9 to 8. See? A little goes a long way with these things. So let's increase the intensity a wee bit. That's too much. This is why you want to do it gradually rather than going from 0 to 100 to 50 to 75. You want to do it in increments. Otherwise, you get lost and then you're going to stress out trying to fix it rather than just adjust to see what you get. It's looking pretty good. Reduce cell thaw again. Okay, let's increase cell thaw. I was changing. Okay, how does this look in a clamp? And let's compare it to the erosion. Yeah, so you can see here, right? But we're losing the shape of the spine of the rocks and these pits. If you look at how, I don't know if you can see it in the stream, but we have to make do for now. I don't have a great streaming PC. We're still keeping the size of the terrain. We're just dampening the outcroppy bits, and it looks like artifacting, right? And by using the snow, the snowfall node, it's softened a lot of it, so it's not as harsh, it's not as easy to see, which is better, especially for games. We want this. We don't want harsh transitions. We don't want square blockiness, which will show up because in our games, remember, we've got 16-bit terrains. In Gaea, we're seeing 32-bit or 64-bit. I'm not sure which. Probably 64, because we can output 64-bit TIFF files, if I remember right. So if we were to go from 64-bit terrain, which is some absurdly high number where they add a dash and an E and a zero with however many zeros are meant to be added, to 32-bit, which is 2 billion different height values, then to 16-bit, which is 65,000 possible height values. Yeah. All the icky bits will stand out incredibly so, like just awfully. It'll be awful to look at, awful to play on. So by smoothing it, but retaining the overall character, by smoothing over the details, make it a lot better and more suited to the game. And the ideal is if we just spend a few minutes adjusting a node in Gaea, we save the level designer spending hours and hours doing revision upon revision of trying to smooth the terrain but keep it playing nice, but have it so you can put all the scenery and all the level stuff in. We just make it smooth and nice from the get-go. We save so much time and effort, because screw doing all that, the same effect by hand. Just have the snowfall node do it so much better. So if we look at the grand scale, we have the erosion, and with the snowfall node, it's softened the edges, but because we did the anastomosis, whatever, we did the whatever node, it helps things jut out. So even when we're further in the chain, having done Fold, Fractal Terrace, and Wizard and Erosion, because we did this early on to push out the cliffs, when we then get to later on eroding and eroding more, and then even blurring, we're still retaining that character. We made sure to keep the broad details. We're just trying to get rid of the small details, because at 16-bit, there are no small details. there are at 32 and 64, especially 64, but not 32. There's no small details there. So we went from this to this. Yeah, so let's see what would happen if we were to put that after the aperture. There's no set way to, like, no specific order. You're going to have to change it because different terrains, different effects means you have to do the blur after or before, the aperture after or before, or both. And you just have to play it by ear, or by eye, I guess, in this case. So let's compare. So erosion and aperture. Would it do snowfall on the erosion or snowfall on the aperture? Let's compare. You have to zoom in real close. I like how it's looking on the aperture, because these grooves are going to look a bit and they might not come up just as you're doing the level in the editor, but if you're a player and you get in that proper third-person camera angle and you're walking up everywhere, then you're going to feel it. You're going to notice it's going to be So also look at the way how it's softened the slopes a bit. It's bulked them up slightly by doing that. Let's actually compare. So erosion to snowfall, erosion to snowfall, aperture to snowfall. Yeah, aperture is the way to go. So erosion, aperture to get rid of the smaller details and widen the slopes, with the snowfall to smooth the jacks. There we go. That's looking better. So before we had that, now we've got this. Notice how we're keeping overall character, and yeah, we're losing some of the detail, but by losing or smoothing over the detail now, we're not going to get crunchy, spiky, icky, bitty, jaggy terrain and re-import it to our game engine. That's pretty cool. I like that. Then lastly, because I don't have a lot of rock going on, this isn't, say, a mountain region, it's not a canyon, it's not Durotar, or it's not the Azara Crater, I think it's called, or the Blasted Lands, or even the Barrens, right? Instead, we're doing Westfall because there's not much rock going on, and the heights are fairly squashed, and there's lots of slopes. There are cliffs, there are mountains, but they're slight and they're small and they're wide. We don't have to do a heal and a blur and then blend at different settings to try and get the best smooth that we can while retaining as much character as we can. So let's compare the blur at 0 power. That's genuinely what you want to do. At first it starts at like 2. Let's look how that compares just straight up. If we do a blur at 2, wow, we've lost everything. Never mind the character, this just looks like a blob on the kitchen sink. But then if we put it to 0, we might be going, oh, didn't we just undo all the blur? Nuh-uh. See? It's very slight. Even at 0 power, fast blur does something. It's very slight, which is just what we want, versus that. That's not what we want. Remember, you want to keep the character just smooth over the detail. So let's see how the different blurs will look. So we have it after aperture, and then we have it after the snowfall. Just do this here. And we'll have it after the erosion snowfall, just to compare. Because these are slight differences, but we need to look for where if we were a player, where would we try to go? Probably up here, because it looks cool. You want to go where it looks cool. That's fun. So let's see if we can get a good angle. Yeah, okay. So you see here with the erosion, right? This is impassable. That's going to be awful to walk on. If you can even find the right angle, your character's going to get stuck. You have to jump. You probably just hate going to the spits. You'll never go to that part of the map again because it feels awful to path on. Never mind the AI for nav mesh generation. Yeah, you. So then we did the snowfall node with a blur. See the change here. We've got the character. We've just smoothed over the details. And by doing that, we've made it traversable now versus that. Jaggy and very pointy, smooth and wide. See here, especially here, where I've got the mouse. Much better. But we've lost too much detail, in my opinion, too much character, rather. And if we did it after the aperture, we also get the wider slopes. It's very slight, but a little goes a long way. What's small in Gaea, right? See this. This is 8x8 ADTs, 4x4 quads, and we can't change the quads in Gaea 1, unfortunately, but we can Nogget, the editor for World of Warcraft, right? And I think, oh, it's just the same. Yeah, well, no. Check this out. Because we can't import objects into Gaea, we have to do inside our game engine. So let's see, where were we? We were looking at this bit actually, which is over here ish. You've got that one. So that I have to find the right one because the scales are slightly different. I can only find. I did a bunch of testing with slope masks and vertex colors in Nogget, and 2340 as an import multiplier in the older versions seem to be pretty close. It's not exact, but it's close. So yeah, here it's about there. It's a bit more squashed, but it's just how it goes. So let's go to night so we can not hurt our eyes looking at this. Maybe dawn. There we go. Might be thinking, how big is that? Doesn't look big in Gaea, because look, it's not that big. Yeah, well, it is. Can you see where we placed the human? He's right there, he's tiny. This is huge. This is genuinely huge. There are no zones this size in vanilla, and if they are, they don't have anywhere near this detail. It's pretty much a flat run across them. Whereas, we zoom in here, would I put him? Yeah, here he is. That little black speck there is actually Let's just do a little fly in, increase the speed a bit. That little black speck is, in fact, not a black speck. He's a human and he's brown. See that? That's really cool, huh? That's huge. And if we just keep placing a few more humans, just to emphasize the point, how big can this terrain possibly be? The answer is really big. We can't even see the humans we placed after. See if we even placed them at all. Or it didn't. Yeah, it did. See? Let's place a house as well. Eep, what have I done? Eh, e. What? Eh. I have no idea what I've just done. Help. How do I... right. Oh my god, what have I done? Is it this? Is it enter? Is it L? No. J, K. Let's see what I've just done. Give me a moment. Is it this? Is it this? No, wasn't that. Top view, L. Yeah, okay. Why can't I get out of L? Why is it scary? How do I get out of this view? Alt L, Shift L, Control L? How do I get out of this? Well, yeah, I have no idea. How did I even get into this? I have no idea. Oh, my detail window, how do I... It should be L. Maybe Shift R? No? How do I get out of this view? I can't get out, it's stuck. Oh, it's U, not L? What? Whatever. Oh yeah, because what happens here is if you press enter, it seems to screw up. So you have to click search or something, I don't know. Anyway, human, I think it's Lord. Where's the house? Is it Lordaeron house? I'm not spelling that right. Farmhouse? Oh my god, it's happened again. Oh yeah, right. If you select the text and put letters in, it screws up, it sends it to here. You have to click and you have to remove them by hand by just backspacing. Farmhouse, enter. Enter doesn't work. Okay, search. Nope. Search. Bear with me here. Okay, let's get the little basic house for scale. Where'd I put the guys? Here we are. Right. So we got some boys here. How does it look for scale? Tiny itty bitty house. Let's place some more for scale. And some up here. To place them all, we press Control V after selecting something in the asset browser window. Let's place some more, because why not? So these black squares are actually houses. This is a really big map. I mean, come on. And let's zoom in. See? Tiny little man. Tiny, tiny little man. Big house. Way bigger map. Let's see where I put the boys here. And look at that. There's no pointy bits, there's no jaggy pits, there's none of that. It's nice and smooth, but it still looks like the overall terrain that we had to begin with before we did all the blurring, before we did the aperture, before we did the snowfall. We've just made it nice and walkable and traversable. Because if we also do the... Alright, yeah, I haven't imported it. Let's actually export this. Because to be fair, we did do some tidy up, but this is going to look a lot even a lot more even better, kind of, maybe. Right, start build. Yep. Save the preview. Because 2048 is what we're building at. That's what we're going to be importing and splitting, so it's perfect. It goes in here. Was it Westfall test? Is it this one? Yeah, it is. Right, paste into height. Oh yeah, and dgen, one of the modders for World of Warcraft, made this script to split everything up, where you define how many tiles it has, get the tiles, divide the resolution of your height map by 256. 2038 divided by 256 makes 8 by 8 tiles. So we just put 8 here. File name is just the name of the PNG. The map name is the name of the world you made in Nogget. So it's gonna, in Nogget, it's gonna look for any images that have the right format with the right name, which will be PNG 16-bit, which is just PNG in the build here. And it needs to be the name of your terrain with the Y and then the X, if I remember right. No, okay, so it's X by Y. Just it. What's going on again with the coordinates? In WoW, it flips the Y. So 0, 0 is the top left, when as usually 0, 0 is bottom left. Why? No idea, just does. And if you do a tile build and you say flip Y, it's not the same, because it's not done by the contents of the file. It's the actual file name. So, and we can't flip just the Y coordinate in the file name in Gaea, sadly. We can't do that. So we do that here using this script by dgen, which uses image magic. So we have a PNG, height PNG. We've got Westfall test, which is the name of our map, which you can see here. We enter Nogget, it will also be the name of the folder of the map. So we put height PNG in there, got WDLs, a WDT, our ADTs, and if we just do log by height, double click it, come with the black window, won't say anything, then I'll exit. Means it's worked. Go into here, asset, what is it? It's assist, global import height maps, tiled edges. Oh yeah, this is the new version. Oh, X. Okay, exit. Do I have the older one? No. Okay. Bear with me here. It's not quite old, and is it this one? I think it's this one. Can never remember. Assist import height maps. Nope, it's not that one. Get that off. Probably just rename that. I think it's not get old. I didn't name these very well. Import height maps. Nope, not that one. Is it this one? Old too? The joys of modding. It's not this one, is it? Nope, that's an old terrain I made. Is it this one? There we go, it should be this one. It sees it, it's got the path right. Debug, load all tiles, assist, import, height maps. There we go, yes, this one, okay. 340, okay, yes. Increase the radius, set speed to 0. You have to do this, you have to go over in Nogget after importing a terrain. You then have to, with the raise/slower tool, or sculpt tool, that's what I call it. You have to set the radius as high as possible, but then speed to 0. Speed is the strength of the tool. And by doing that, you update the lighting. By default, the lighting doesn't update on import. It's a nasty bug that TT has looked at it, the main programmer for Nugget Red, and I remember it being a very hard task and bug to work with. I don't think he managed to figure it out. Because to be fair, it's C++, and C++ is horrible. Let's see. Okay. Let's get another human male for scale. Human male. No, it's not that one. We want the... There we go. That's the one we want. Yeah. And if we do a wireframe to show it, yeah, here we go. This is a good example. See how everything is smooth? It looks like blobs up close, right? But it's not. Especially in the distance, you can see we have flows, we have mountain ridges, we have mountain tops, we've got slopes. It's just so cool. Look at this. This is awesome. Got the hilly bits, and let's take a look at them actually. Well, so if we look in wireframe, no pits, no jags, no spikes. This good old-fashioned smooth terrain. But it's actually modern fashion because look, it's actually interesting to look at even without textures or objects. Thanks to Gaea. And if we look at the mountain ridges, because we did the aperture and we did the snow, we have some little pointy bit. And you're going to have to go over these anyway with the smooth tool, right? There's only so much we can do when we have a preview of 32-bit, but the game is 16-bit. I see this looks very low res. It's tiny, but it's there. And this is why I hope if we if we ask Quad Spinner to put a 16-bit preview into Gaea 2, even into Gaea 1, that'd be awesome, but I think they're only going to do development on Gaea 2. We could avoid this so there'd be even less work for level designers. We don't even have to bother looking up close trying to find problems if we could just do that in Gaea before we import. Because if we can do the terrain great first time around, so we don't ever have to load it back up and do another build, another export, even with Gaea 2, you're saving hours, if not days, if not weeks. Gaea 1, definitely weeks with the build speeds. I mean, come on, for procedurally generated terrain, just having a bit of touch-up needed rather than a lot of touch-up, that's just for the mountainy bits, that's pretty cool. And there's some more we could do, but I don't want to go on too hard, because even if we used masks and such, there's still, we're going to not get just the ones we want to smooth, we're going to get everything. And since this isn't a rocky terrain, I feel if we did we got a mask using protrusion and then modified that using shaper, or before the protrusion we use shaper, and then put that into a blur, still you're going to catch, the little hills, the small mounds, and you're going to blur them out more. It'll just flatten them further when it's already really nice. Because look, this is what's like on the ground, but it's not the mountains, right? Very smooth, very continuous. Not harsh, not jaggy, not sharp, but still has the character. Even with no textures and no custom lighting, right? It still looks really cool. Check out the coast as well. Let's get the sun off. Fortunately, there's no water mask input into Nugget Red at the moment. Something I begged TT for, but he's been doing a lot of hard work, so I'm sure it'll be there one day. Just right now there isn't, so we can't do a good preview of water. But see, even here, we have actual, detail, but it's not hitty, it's not jaggy. It's not going to get your character stuck, right? See? No pits, no jags. It looks smooth, it really does. With wireframe, it looks blurred, because it kind of is. But we still have our character. We still have the cliffs. See here, right? There we go. We have cliffs. We've got cliffs. Come on. Do you know how much pain it is starting out running? Why does everything look awful and jaggy and it's horrible to play on? Yeah. I really wish there was a 16-bit preview in Gaea. I wasted so much time trying to figure this out. So yeah, it was already good before, but now it's pretty damn close to perfect. Which just these tiny little problem areas. And if you've ever exported terrain from Gaea and then imported it into your terrain without doing the aperture, expand and contract, without doing the snowfall, without doing the blur at 0 power, and without doing hero node, which we've not done because I think it really needs it. It's not a rocky terrain. We'd lose too much. Yeah, you'd be breaking your head forever trying to figure it out, and there's no real concrete information on this. So if you take anything away from the stream, it's make sure to do aperture, expand and contract early on, and then later on you want to do it. Here I've done it for the start, well, close to the start here. So if we do this in sections, section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I guess 7 here, and just get rid of these. Here, I did this up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the output. I do aperture at stage 2, and then aperture at stage 6. I then do blur at stage 6 after I've done a snowfall. That gets me my final terrain. That's pretty damn close to perfect for the level designer. So yeah, that's what's to take away from it. You need to know when and why, early on and late on, why to get rid of these icky bits. Even when we've just done a fractal terrace, we haven't done any erosion. So if we look here, square and jaggy, it's slight, but a little goes a long way, especially where it's noisy, because look at these slopes here. Fractal terrace, then we do the aperture. We make it more consistent. We get rid of the harsher pits. So remember, we're working at the small detail scale to get rid of that. And then we do blur to do the large detail scale, large scale detail. So fractal terrace, then we do the aperture. We do all our stuff. We also use convector after the aperture to build everything out, right? Yeah. So we have our basic shape that we then bulked up. In fact, yeah, let's zoom out and do this. So out with a multifractal, combined it with a mask. Let me get a better angle to preview this. Yeah, so multifractal just for a bit of shape, a bit of noise, a bit of detail. They did a mask to add some character, a coastline. We added a ridge, which we shaped a bit to add a bit more character and some larger detail. Then a range to add most of the character for our basic shape. We did a fractal terrace to bulk it up and make it into rock. Did an aperture to remove the small little detail. You can barely see it. You can even see it at all in the stream after encoding. It's very slight because we're working on the small detail with that. Convector to bulk it out. Stratify, which we combined with the previous convector to a small percentage or high percentage, get a small bit of the stratify coming through because the original was too strong. We combined with the mask to get the coastline again. We did a looped erosion to get a very nice gradual effect by looping it multiple times with low duration rather than one with high duration. Save processing time, and we save most of the character of the terrain while still adding the slopes and the dirt and the gravel and the sand. And then we did a recurve to soften things a bit. And we do this in the middle, not at the beginning, not at the end. We do a recurve after doing a bunch of erosion, because we eroded, 3 times? And also bulked it with fractal terrace. And then after the recurve, we do our various erosions. Then we did a fold. And, oh yeah, the anastomosis, that's important. It worked out really well for this. This is how we get the terrain, the rock, the hard part of it, jutting out from the dirt, the sand, the grass, the flows, or whatever. The fold to add a bit more variety to break up the kind of continuous shape, especially the coastline. Bulked up again. We also bulked up the sides using convector. Then we eroded. We added the coastline. Eroded again to make a good transition from the coastline. Then, lastly, clean everything up. We did aperture to get rid of any small details that are still there. Snowfall to exaggerate the slopes and make it nice to walk on. And a blur at 0 power to just make everything as close as we can to smooth but still defined. We got rid of as much of the annoying small detail bits, the artifacting, the corruption from going from 64 or 32-bit down to 16. Then we have our height. That's really cool. So hopefully the mic's better. And I'm going to take a wee break. I might do another stream tonight if I've got the energy, but I'm really tired. So I really wanted to do something today before I was just too knackered. So yeah, basically this is just a recap, show off what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how to smooth the terrain. So you get a nice traversability. Remember, we also kept everything fairly clamped, while also just making it nice to look at, fun to walk on in a detailed world. And lastly, what we should do is look at the height range. Well, maybe it's not even 20% or 18%. Yeah, okay, it's 18% height range. From the lowest playable bit to the highest playable bit is an 18% difference. You want to aim for around that. Any higher and it's going to be too much to kind of one, get the overall character to not just be either entirely mountain or entirely impassable. Keep it to 20, 18, 20%, so you can actually walk around it and engage with as much terrain as possible. Even if it's impressive to have a really high cliff, it's still really big, right? This is still big. We placed a little man, right? So let's get the man big, right? Place one at the bottom. That is still really high, even with a 20% range, 18% range, right? That's huge. Just look. It's getting tinier and tinier. It's getting further and further away. Even further. Let's make it day so we can see him a bit better. Even further. Even further. Right? And we're still not at the base of the mountain yet. There he is. It's that little red pixel with the little pinky pixel. And we'll just speed this up a bit. Yeah, there we go. So even with an 18% difference from the lowest playable part to the highest, is still really big. That's only 20%. 18, 20%? Yeah, 18%. So, you know, we've only used not even a fifth of the possible height, and we've got really cool, fun to play on terrain. And let's look at the slope as well. So I had this at 43, I should probably put it to 40. And we've got the invert. Black is where we can't walk. White is where we can, before we do the invert, right? Because I try to aim for what looks to me like 80%, right, of traversability, at least. We invert. Okay, so we probably still can't walk up that bit, but we can add things as a level designer. We've got the main part here, this probably is, and you're not going to get caught and snagged on, which is the most important thing. If it's impassable, it's impassable. It's not fun when it's just, it looks like it's passable, but it's not, and your character's getting stuck on the terrain all the time. And that's just awful. We have a smooth, continuous terrain that has lots of character, a bit of detail, and mostly traversable. I mean, we could even go up anywhere on this side in the original. So the fact that we have any, we've got some valley over here, we got a little mountain pass here, you can go around over here. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So, just a quick little recap again. Make your basic shape, then do aperture, then do all your bulking and eroding. Do a recurve after your strongest erosion, if needed, to smooth out the mountaintops, tips, the jags, the spikes, whatever. Use things like anastomosis and fold to break up the contiguous terrain to make it look natural. After you've done all your erosion, do another aperture, expand, contract, then do snowfall to expand the slopes, do a blur at 0%, and there you go. Pretty damn near perfect terrain mesh to play on. Splat maps and the vertex colors, we're going to get on that the next session. We'll probably do the rock splat map, so the first channel, and we'll go from there for the sessions. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully this will save on the stream and YouTube. Okay, sweet, bye.